Coming up next on Being Well, registered dietitian Laura Jacob will be here to talk about all things nutrition. We'll look at simple ways to cut calories that can add up over the long run. Laura will also provide us some facts and information about proper portion sizes. We've got that and a whole lot more coming up next on this edition of Being Well. Production of Being Well is made possible in part by Sarah Bush Lincoln Health System, supporting healthy lifestyles, eating a heart-healthy diet, staying active, managing stress, and regular checkups are ways of reducing your health risks. Proper health is important to all at Sarah Bush Lincoln Health System. Information available at sarahbush.org. AlphaCare, specializing in adult care services that range from those recovering from recent hospitalizations to someone attempting to remain independent while coping with a disability, chronic illness, or age-related infirmity. AlphaCare, compassionate professional home care. Additional funding by Jazzercise of Charleston. Hello and welcome to Being Well. I'm your host, Lori Casey, and I'm with Laura Jacob. Tell us a little bit about yourself and where you work.
I'm a registered dietitian, and I work with the Health Education Resource Center, which is part of the EIU Health Service. And
today we're talking about smart nutrition, something that we all need to be aware of. And we actually have a lot of food on the table too, which is actually rubber. We're going to get to that in just a little bit. But let's talk about, we know that cutting our overall calorie intake is a good thing if you're eating a lot of calories. And give us some simple to remember tips on how maybe we can swap one food for the other and that can save us some calories over the week and the month.
Okay. I really like that idea of doing that, because a lot of times when we see different diets and diet plans, it calls for a huge overhaul and a complete change of what you're doing. But this way you can make some small changes that really can and have a big impact. Just a little background, about 100 calories a day over what your calorie needs are can lead to 10 pounds of weight gain in a year. So doing some of these things can be very helpful. So for example, a common one that people overconsume on is sugar-sweetened beverages. So if you can take that and instead of that, have water or have unsweetened tea. Those are good no-calorie choices. A lot of people tell me they really don't like the taste of water. So some ways you can improve that are drinking your water cold, so it has less taste, as well as maybe adding some lemon to it. So some other ideas might be with a baked potato. We typically will have butter and sour cream on our baked potato, which is high calorie. Now, baked potato by itself is pretty nutritious, actually.
It's all the other good stuff, good tasting things that we put on it that kind of make it not as healthy.
Yeah, that really add a lot of calories. So one thing that you can try is having some salsa and a sprinkle of shredded cheese, actually, which is really tasty. So I recommend people give that a try. Another thing you might do is, I always like to encourage people to allow themselves occasional treats in moderation. So for example, a typical cookie that we might have might be this big and maybe 300 to 400 calories, where we could swap something like a dark chocolate nugget, which would be about 50 to 60 calories, have a lot of flavor, and enjoyment, and so that would be a calorie savings while still allowing yourself to not feel deprived.
So sometimes eating something that is maybe a higher quality food, like a really good chocolate, less of it rather than a bunch of something else, is maybe a good way to look at that.
So you increase your enjoyment, and you take your time to eat it, enjoy it, and make those calories count.
Okay, so you search the internet for diet plans, or diet plans, eating plans. There's so many out there. There's always something new. When we see something come across, our computers, that's the latest and greatest, how should we as consumers evaluate that and go, yes, I should try that? What are some criteria you would use as a dietitian to evaluate whether this is a good idea or not?
Okay, so well, looking at their claims that they make, does it claim that you're going to have rapid weight loss? For example, 30 pounds in 30 days. So we know that a lot of times if you did lose weight that rapidly, a lot of it's going to be water weight, so that's not true weight loss. Or if it was true weight loss, you're going to be losing some muscle tissue with that as well. And you don't want to do that because that will decrease your metabolic rate. You're going to gain the weight back when you go off of it. And over time, that decreases your calorie needs so that it's easier to gain weight over time when you do that kind of rapid weight loss. Also, it can promote formation of gallstones, which we don't want to do.
Oh, no.
Yes, that's actually pretty common on very calorie restricted diets.
Okay, so like, are there ones that, I would think of ones that include a lot of protein. Can that lead to gallstones, or what actually causes the gallstones if you're on some kind of diet?
They're really not absolutely sure what causes that, but it's that severe calorie deficit that typically does it, and the rapid weight loss.
Okay.
Protein is actually eating a little bit of protein at every eating occasion when you're trying to lose weight is a good thing because it promotes fullness and satisfaction, so you're not hungry.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
What about some plans that say take out this food group altogether? Don't eat that at all, ever.
Yes, that's definitely something that you want to avoid.
Okay.
Because you're limiting your nutrients that are available that way. So allowing yourself to have foods from every food group gives you something from everything. And so you want it to be a nutritious diet and something that you can continue to follow rather than something that you go on and off of. So those are typically difficult to follow, where certain food groups or certain nutrients like carbohydrates are severely restricted. It's hard to follow, and you'll end up, and they promote it as something that you go on and off of instead of a permanent healthy change.
Right.
And then when people do gain their weight back, and then that kind of leads to not only you haven't achieved your goal, but some emotional issues like feeling guilty and feeling not confident in your ability to lose weight.
So maybe the first thing you should ask yourself when you look at that is, can I do this for the rest of my life?
Exactly. Is it something that you can follow for the rest of your life? Yes.
Because are there some health dangers in losing a bunch of weight, gaining it back, gaining? I mean, we can all go on some crazy diet to lose 20 pounds for a class reunion and get back to our high school weight and then put it all back on. But is there some inherent health danger in doing that repeatedly?
Yes. Well, you change your body composition a lot, which again decreases your metabolic rate. So you lose muscle tissue, and when you gain it back as fat for the most part, especially if you're not exercising. So that would be, and of course, higher body fat, it can lead to heart disease and disability and things like that.
Well, I want to get to all of this stuff that's on the table, and it looks like real food, but actually it's rubber food. And this is a great example of portion sizing, because we all know as Americans, we tend to over portion size some things. So Laura, I'm going to let you go through this and give us some real world examples of, what appropriate portion sizes should be.
Okay. Well, a little bit of background info on that would be that our portion sizes have increased significantly over the last 30 to 40 years, which coincides with our obesity epidemic. And so these would be considered standard portion sizes, more like what they should be. So when you're looking at fruit, a piece of fruit would be about the size of a baseball, so a medium piece of fruit. Dried fruit would be 2 tablespoons of dried fruit. It's very calorie dense, and that would be about the size of a golf ball.
Okay.
Non-starchy vegetables or starchy vegetables, typically cooked vegetables is a half a cup. Also mashed potatoes or any other potatoes, a half a cup. And all of these starches here, we have corn, we have rice, we have pasta, we have macaroni and cheese. And those you could estimate being about the size of a tennis ball, anything that's half a cup.
Can we go back to the vegetables? Because I think a lot of times when you say, serving of vegetables, you're like, oh, I really don't like broccoli or carrots or the non-starchy things. When you look actually at what a half a cup is, it really isn't that much.
It's not that much. So we're so used to, actually, our plate sizes and our bowl sizes have increased so much that we tend to serve ourselves more than that because the plate, otherwise it looks empty. So we're serving bigger portion sizes. But actually another way of looking at the non-starchy vegetables, you know, I know a lot of people don't like vegetables, but you know, when I ask people, when I work with people and I ask them, and we go through a list of vegetables, they're like, well, I actually do like that, and I actually like that. So that's one thing to look at. But another way of improving your nutrition would be to make those non-starchy vegetables half your plate, rather than maybe just a half a cup. You could eat a lot more of that if there's no fat or sauce added to it, and you get a lot of nutrition for your calories, because they're low calorie.
In looking at the fake apple, I have some apples at home. Apples have even gotten big. I mean, I have some Honeycrisp at home. It's like the size of a softball practically, and that's probably 3 or 4 servings.
Yes, a lot of times they are a lot more than that. So, and that fruit is healthy for you. It's higher in calories than the non-starchy vegetables are. So it is important to have an awareness of what you're taking in.
Okay, so I want to get back to the center plate, the starches, because we all, you know, I love pasta. I'm looking at this serving of pasta. Now, when is the last time any of you went to a restaurant and your noodles were
exactly.
It's like usually 3 or 4 times that size.
Exactly, and this is a calorie-dense food item that's not terribly nutritious, so it's adding a lot of calories without, and then we're adding a lot of fat and sauces to it as well.
Yeah, sauce and all sorts of good stuff. You brought a CD with you. You don't eat the CD. This is a good example. I'm going to have you explain what the CD is all about.
Well, this is another way of estimating what a standard pancake portion would be about the size of 1 CD. So, you know, typically when we eat pancakes, especially if we go out to eat, they're going to be a lot bigger in diameter, and we're going to get 3 or 4 of them.
They'll usually be the size of the plate.
Yes, exactly. So just have an awareness of what you're taking in.
Okay. So I'm gonna switch here because we've got this protein plate. I'm gonna put that over here. So we've got protein, which, by the way, isn't always meat. You can get protein from other sources, such as what?
Well, beans are a really, really good, healthy source of protein. You get a lot of fiber. You get soluble fiber, which is good for your heart health, can lower your cholesterol. Nuts are a good choice. They're high in the healthy fats. They are high in calories, so you want to watch the portion. So it would be about the size of the palm of your hand for nuts.
But they're actually kind of filling when you eat them. It's actually kind of a good thing. You don't have to have a lot. We're going to talk about calorie density and nutrient dense in just a little bit. Tell me what the deal is with the deck of cards here on the plate.
This is another way of estimating a meat portion. So kind of a standard portion of meat would be about 3 ounces. So, or the size of a deck of cards. A lot of people have seen that. And here you would see a hamburger, which is about 3 ounces. Fish, hopefully a non-fried fish, would be about the size of a checkbook, because it's a little higher in water, so you get a little bit bigger portion of it.
Okay. So we've got this delicious piece of cake here that does look good enough to eat. Talk to me about the cake and why there is a poker chip on that plate.
Okay. Well, cake and ice cream, these are things that we want to just eat occasionally. But our typical cake serving that we might serve ourselves at home, or especially in a restaurant, is going to be a lot bigger than this. Well, a standard portion of cake is about 2 inches by 2 inches. And then ice cream, this is a half a cup of ice cream. This would be a standard portion, whereas typically we're going to fill our bowl a lot bigger.
It's mounded up.
Or if we get it at a restaurant, it's going to be a lot more than that, and probably equal 500 to 600 calories.
And what about the poker chip? That represents something.
Okay, this represents oils and fats, and this would be about a tablespoon. So a serving of mayonnaise or a serving of oil, margarine, or butter would be about that size. So that's a good way of estimating the portion of that.
Okay. What about drinks? We have milk here, and I think that's milk. Serving of milk. You think, oh, it's a good thing. I should just drink and drink and drink. Well, if it's whole milk, that's got a lot of fat in it.
That's a very good point. So you want to choose the low fat or the 1% or the skim would be good choices. And standard serving is 8 ounces or a cup. Most people do need to get more of those high calcium items. So you want to have 3 to 4 servings of a high calcium item like that a day, like yogurt or low-fat milk are good choices.
But not whole heavy cream.
Right. And then watching your coffee, what you put in your coffee is a big calorie addition for a lot of people.
Yeah, for me it's sugar. I have switched to fat-free half and half, which is actually kind of a wonderful thing to cook with. You get kind of that creaminess without all the fat.
Yeah, so there's a good swap for you.
There you
good
go.
Way to reduce your calories.
You talked a little bit about calorie-dense foods and nutrient-dense foods, and it's this concept that sounds kind of high-tech called volumetrics. Can you explain what that is?
Yes. Well, volumetrics is a way of looking at. It's a tool in weight management. Actually, it's not. I wouldn't encourage it as a total eating plan, but it's a good tool that you can put in your tool belt if you're trying to manage your weight, to avoid gaining weight or to lose weight. So that would include foods that are high in volume and low in calories. So I would think of a salad. So some of our salads can be very high in calories, so you have to watch that. But having a large amount of leafy greens with a lot of non-starchy vegetables, tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, all of those kind of things. And then you can even add, so you can have a large amount of that for very few calories. So depending on what you're putting on it, avoiding the cheese, croutons, bacon,
high-fat dressing, the things that do make it taste good.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
But you can some tools that people might use would be to use some high liquid ingredients. For example, mandarin oranges can add a lot of liquid to your salad and maybe decrease the amount of salad dressing that you desire to use. It can add some moisture there. Some other things would be that kind of go along with that would be foods that are high in water. So those can be filling. So starting your meal with something like a broth-based vegetable soup can give you some fullness, and you get a lot of nutrition for your calories. And that can maybe reduce what you eat in your meal. So that would be a good starter as opposed to, at a restaurant, as opposed to a lot of the appetizers that are there that tend to be high in calories, maybe higher than
I would think too, breads, like more whole wheat bread versus white bread.
Yeah, so that would be much more nutrient dense. Similar, or maybe whole wheat bread, maybe a little bit higher in calories, but you got to think about what you get for it. It's a lot more nutrient dense.
Okay. So. I want to get into good fats and bad fats. It's still, now you see coconut oil. Like, oh, coconut oil is the next greatest thing that we should be doing. Talk about good and bad fats and where coconut oil fits into that.
Okay. Well, the good fats, let's start with the bad fats.
Okay.
Those are the ones that, like saturated fats, the solid fats that we get in our diet. So foods that are high in saturated fat would we want to decrease in our diet, because those, and then having an inappropriate ratio of the bad fats to the good fats. So the good fats would be those coming from liquid oils, particularly those that are high in omega-3 fatty acids. And some choices there would be canola oil is pretty high in omega-3 fatty acids. Salmon is a good source of omega-3s. Other foods like ground flaxseed and walnuts, those are also good choices for the healthy fats. And those are, those omega-3 fatty acids decrease inflammation in the body. So inflammation is kind of implicated in heart disease and other chronic conditions like asthma, allergies, arthritis, and things like that. So we want to get more of those omega-3s and less of the saturated fats.
Okay, and saturated fats typically come from animal sources like lard and marbling in like a juicy steak.
Yes, and the outer fat that you can see and the marbling. But you talked about coconut oil, and coconut oil is one of the few sources of plant fat that is very high in saturated fat. And so when you see it in the jar, you may have seen it in the store, it's actually a solid fat, which is pretty uncommon with plant oils. So there's kind of a lot of talk about coconut oil in the media right now as being promoted as something to help with weight loss. it's actually, again, high in saturated fat. So we want to avoid those. So choosing coconut oil may not be the best choice for people.
Okay.
One of the things that they look at is that it's metabolized differently than other fats in the diet. So coconut oil is high in MCT or medium chain triglyceride, whereas most of the other fats that we consume are high in LCT or long chain triglycerides. So the MCTs actually, again, are metabolized differently. The body can use them a little bit more easily as a source of energy. But at the same time, it's fat, and getting excess fat in the diet promotes weight gain. A lot of what you hear about it is based on one study that was completed, and that study actually was based on MCT oil and not specifically coconut oil.
Okay.
So you can't really make direct connections between the two. And what they found was that people had a little bit better of a weight loss when replacing other fats with the MCT oil.
Okay.
At the same time, in that study, they reduced calories. So it's really not, there's one or two studies, so we need to really be able to repeat those things in order to make claims like that.
Okay. We're just about out of time, but let me ask you real quick, is there a couple of foods that you as a dietitian would recommend we should be implementing into our regular eating to make us more healthy?
Yeah, well, looking in, having a good balance of foods and not overeating any one particular food is always a good idea, so you get a variety of nutrients. But some foods that I think of as being high nutrient density or high in antioxidants would be berries, especially blueberries, broccoli, onions, garlic, hot peppers are good ones, fresh herbs. And some other ones might be foods that are high in soluble fiber, like oats, beans, barley, lentils are good choices. And then those foods that are high in the omega-3s that I talked about.
So the fish oils and things like that. All right. Well, Laura, thank you so much for coming by Being Well today and
Thank you.
Bringing your food and telling us all about what we need to know about being smart about nutrition.
Thank you very much.
Do you know the difference between the flu and the common cold? Here's some helpful information from the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. Flu is a respiratory infection caused by a number of viruses. The viruses pass through the air and enter your body through your nose or mouth. The flu can be serious or even deadly for elderly people, newborn babies, and people with certain chronic illnesses. Symptoms come on suddenly and are worse than those of the common cold. They may include body or muscle aches, chills, cough, fever, headache, and sore throat. So do you have a cold or flu? Colds rarely cause a fever or headaches, and flu almost never causes an upset stomach. Stomach flu isn't really flu at all, but most likely gastroenteritis. Most people with the flu recover on their own without medical care. People with mild cases of the flu should stay at home and avoid contact with others. The main way to keep from getting the flu is to get a yearly flu vaccine. Good hygiene, including hand washing, can also help. With children back in school, many parents are again on the alert for easily transmittable childhood diseases. Hand, foot, and mouth disease is one of them. Usually it's not a big concern, but in certain circumstances, hospitalization may be required. Here's Dennis Doda for the Mayo Clinic News Network.
It's not often that a rash will land a child in the hospital.
It was just the skin. He was his normal, cheerful self.
But when 7-month-old Max Gumbel's chronic eczema suddenly erupted over a 24-hour period, a call to a nurse helpline prompted his parents to take him to the emergency room.
And then this morning when he started getting it in his mouth, I think that was the clincher.
Right there, in the middle of Max's tongue, is the telltale blister. The diagnosis, hand, foot, and mouth disease, a common condition usually appearing in children under 5 years old.
What happens is kids will get a fever, they may not feel well, And then over the next few days, they'll get more symptoms.
Max's pediatric dermatologist, Megan Tollefson, says because of his eczema, a round of tests was quickly ordered up to rule out other conditions such as chickenpox, a staph infection, or the presence of the herpes virus, which can create more serious complications. Dr. Tollefson says another situation may also require hospitalization.
One is if there are so many sores in the mouth that they couldn't drink and they were getting dehydrated, and they would need to be in the hospital for fluids, basically.
Interestingly, tests revealed that Max had contracted a newer, more aggressive strain of hand, foot, and mouth virus. First seen just a few years ago, it often causes a more widespread rash on the torso, arms, and legs.
Kind of the mystery to me was he was getting it on his hands and and in his diaper, where he had never had eczema before.
Considering the other possibilities, however, Jennifer says the diagnosis was actually a relief. Because it's a virus, Dr. Tollefson says in most cases there's little to do beyond letting it run its course.
So just trying to get kids to eat and drink as much as possible, and if they have a fever, to give them medicines like Tylenol or ibuprofen to help with the fever.
For the Mayo Clinic News Network, I'm Dennis Doda.
Dr. Tollefson says it's difficult to prevent most cases of hand, foot, and mouth disease because children may be contagious days before symptoms appear. As for that newer strain of the virus, Mayo dermatologists say don't be surprised to see older kids and even adults coming down with it. Well, that's all the time we have, so thanks for watching Being Well. Be sure to check us out on YouTube. That's youtube.com/WEIUTV. We'll see you next time.
Production of Being Well is made possible in part by Sarah Bush Lincoln Health System, supporting healthy lifestyles. Eating a heart-healthy diet, staying active, managing stress, and regular checkups are ways of reducing your health risks. Proper health is important to all at Sarah Bush Lincoln Health System. Information available at sarahbush.org. AlphaCare, specializing in adult care services that range from those recovering from recent hospitalizations to someone attempting to remain independent while coping with a disability, chronic illness, or age-related infirmity. AlphaCare, compassionate professional home care. Additional funding by Jazzercise of Charleston.